Um, it's
Hi, Hayley.
Hi, Brian. How are you? I just ran straight into the combo.
Yeah, I'm doing good, thanks.
Good. So we were just talking about how the week is going, and we were talking about construction timelines and trying to be in the flow of construction timelines. And with that raises this question about my triggers. And I was completely triggered this week because at 9:45, I'm already in bed. And it was just random that I picked up my phone to look at it. And the phone was like, oh, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. We're going to start construction. And the construction was cutting concrete with one of those saws.
No.
And then chiseling to pick up the concrete.
And did you have video calls lined up for that?
Normal day plan, because I'm like, 2 weeks ago they said we'll be there on the 30th, and I had sent a message confirm they're coming on the 30th. Nothing until 9:45. We'll be there at 10 a.m. So I had to, and I think it's just something that really triggers me is time. When people are just like, I take it as a disrespectful thing. If you're going to be late or you're going to expect everybody to adjust around your schedule at the last minute, I see that as a mindless activity.
Well, people are in their own worlds, and
yeah,
they've got their own stories and a lot of things that are on their plate, and they're not really thinking about you, especially if they're busy.
That's, these construction guys, when you break it down, when I was trying to understand my trigger, because there's the time factor, and then there's the mess factor, and then there's people in my home. And, breaking all of that down, it's like, okay, it's not, these construction guys have crazy, hectic schedules. Like, they're planned, and if one thing takes a little bit longer, it throws everything off. So.
And they work for wages we wouldn't accept.
Yeah.
Doing work we wouldn't do.
We wouldn't do, and it's tough work, man.
It really hard work. But beyond that, I think, for me, the issue here is letting go. I woke up yesterday with feeling a lot of pressure. Somebody wanted something. They told me about it, and then they wanted it immediately, and I of course took it on, the pressure on myself rather than saying no. And I was doing this, so I got it done, what they wanted, and I was relieved when it was finished. But I've also got this book hanging over my head, and people wanting manuscripts read to offer blurbs, which I'm honored to do. And I said to myself this morning, as I was running errands, trying to get back here in time for this, that the book, there's no deadline in the book. I've created my own deadline. Yeah. I don't have a publisher. I don't have an agent. I have an idea, and I'm working on it, and it's good. But I'm pushing, and I feel this weight. And it's only when you have these sort of aha moment. I was thinking about going back to our favorite subject of wisdom, and I've been, researching a bit about it, Hayley, because I want to write more about it. Wisdom is really about perspective. It's about seeing things in the big picture rather than, getting caught in the moment. And part of wisdom, I think, is being able to say, look, and in the big picture, whether this book ever gets published is, that's, you don't even have control over that. You don't need to have it done tomorrow. Do what you can each day. And if you're feeling not well or overwhelmed by other projects, let go of it and come back to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Let go.
I mean, that's, that was one of your first messages to me, I think, when we met, was to move forward. But let me see if I slowly, joyfully, and gratefully. Am I right? What are the three?
Gratefully. Yeah.
Yeah, but there were three things you said, all right, I want you to move forward with. And I thought, okay, that's a good daily mantra is you don't have to rush it, do it with joy and do it with gratitude,
Yeah.
because, who knows?
And that's, when I'm triggered, meditation goes out the window. I can't sit and try and meditate when there's all the cement dust sitting outside. So I'm just like, okay, don't pretend you can meditate here. But what I can do is go to gratitude. And just
Right.
being grateful for, okay, I'm grateful that I actually have a place that people can come and work on. And I'm actually glad that maybe when they're here, they can actually enjoy their work and not feel pressure. And maybe they're picking up on the vibe of the house, that it's a happy place. So gratitude is the easiest and the simplest thing to get to. And slowing down is so important. So important.
Yeah, gratitude really is a wonderful spritzer on the face that says, wait, you know what? You have a really good, all the things that you're complaining about in your mind or you're feeling overwhelmed by, there are people with nothing. And in the big picture, on your deathbed, you're not even going to remember these construction workers and the cancellation of the Zoom call that you had to make. It's insignificant.
Yeah. And I find that when I am rushing around and my pace quickens, that's when doubt creeps in too.
When doubt?
Doubt creeps in.
What is doubt for you?
Doubting for me is when I choose to question my wisdom. I have a sense of knowing that I know what's right. I know my truth. But then that ego with the doubt is like, what if it isn't? How certain are you that you've got this all together? Maybe they know better. And that I've noticed that again this week with this wonderful lesson of construction and mess. As I got triggered, I was like, all right, I'm breathing faster. I'm trying to move faster. I'm trying to do things faster. And now I'm completely doubting myself. I'm doubting all of the clients that I saw last week. Did I tell them the right thing? Was I really clear and clean, or was I giving them biased information? And it was like yesterday, I was just like, okay, stop.
Did you?
Yeah.
Ray's here. Well, Ray, say hello to everyone who's going to be watching this too. This is my husband, Ray, of 45 years.
Oh, this is a podcast.
Yes, this is a podcast. Bye, Ray. Everything happens for a reason.
Everything happens. And I think that's part of it too, is that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, people have heard Ray's name, so it's glad that he was reaching in for a stapler. He's doing our taxes, which I'm grateful to him for doing.
Yeah, and you know what else is today? April 1st, a brand new month.
Yes, I'm glad you didn't say April Fools. I've always found April Fools kind of a silly, annoying. Did they have that in Zimbabwe?
Yeah.
Did they? You know what's kind of cool though, Hayley, to me, is that these things that we celebrate in one piece of the world actually happens around the world. I love watching foreign language films and listening to them sing happy birthday. It's just, I think, wow, that's a song these two, I think, older ladies from Philadelphia made up, years ago, and how the tune got carried, everywhere.
And I think, everything happens for a reason. And with wisdom comes humility to understand that we are all connected.
And we're only part of the picture.
We're only one small piece, not of 7.4 billion people, but of a planet, of all the beings on the planet, and then the solar system, and then the universe. And it's just like, okay, chill out.
And of the beings on the planet at this particular moment. I mean, and and whether or not we come back and we don't know. And I personally believe in it, but because it allows for fanciful thinking. I like the idea that we have chances to, and the other comforting thing I like about the reincarnation is that we travel with the same people. So it means that, you and I have been in each other's lives before. This Bill that we just interviewed, last week, Bill has been in our lives before, and
yeah, and it's also nice to think that if I complete the karma with that person, I don't need them in another life. It can be free of that.
Or, yeah. I had a really interesting conversation yesterday with, and this is about perspective. It was a Zoom call with the mother of a child, a 30-year-old married, highly successful child who had informed their mother that they now identified as non-binary. And the mother was struggling with, first of all, why did I hear last about this? My child, I'm consciously not using the word daughter because the child has asked not to be referred to as daughter any longer. And I won't use she because a non-binary or genderqueer person prefers they as the pronoun. And so the mother was aware that her divorced husband heard before she did, and her children, other grown children, heard, and she couldn't quite understand, why this information had to be shared, and couldn't understand why what she might have done about it. And we had a really useful phone call in which I suggested to her that the better perspective was that she was saved last because she was the most important in the child's mind. Like, I don't know if you're like me, Hayley, but I sort of try to do the easy stuff first and then go to the heavier duty stuff. So speaking to mom was really, really important. And I could see her face well up, when I affirmed the love that her child has for her. And that the child really came into the womb, came out of the womb hardwired. The brain was already hardwired. There was nothing she did, family did, the world did in order to have the child come to this point. And I could see her change with me as we talked. And again, it's perspective. It's having someone, which is what you do, for work professionally, is that you offer a fresh perspective to people about the lives that they have going on, that they're too involved in, they're too there in order to perhaps to see, and also, or to be aware of what other patterns are possible. And at the end, I suggested to her, now, let your child see. I said, I have to practice this myself. And why? I said, the reason why they have told you this is because they have come to the point of becoming aware of language that fits to describe their lifelong experience. And they're excited about this. It doesn't mean that they're no longer sexually the same. There's, because sex and gender are two different things. So their relationship with their husband is going to stay the same. But it means that they want now to create a world in which they feel safe and valued.
Right.
And when you and I first started talking, and you talked about the superpower that you think gay people might have from the coming out experience, because it takes great strength to go through this experience of being alienated from everything around you, because nothing makes sense. TV shows, books, things that people cry about, and you think, where do I fit in all of this?
Yeah.
That the child was creating a world, and they wanted you to be a part of it. That's why they told you, so that you could be a part of their world. Well, that changed, everything.
Yeah, changed the perspective, opened it up a bit.
And the mother said, well, now I understand why a gay person would need to come out to find another gay person, but why do you need to share this with others? I said, to create community.
Yeah.
How do I find others like me unless I put a name tag on that says, this is how I see the world?
Yep. And we don't always have that courage either to put that name tag, because I think if you're coming from a place where you didn't fit with labels, you don't necessarily want to go back into that. But then I also see in saying that how you then are still labeling yourself as something.
Well, labels, I agree that labels can be confining, but depending upon where you happen to be stuck in the historic cultural context, labels are liberating because they help you find other people like you. I embrace the word gay as a word to describe myself in my early 20s. And there are times that I wish that I didn't have to hear it again, because it really has defined my life. Yet that's where, I was born into this era. And maybe if I was born 100 years from now, I won't need to, right?
Well, I think
because people like me made it possible. Pardon?
The community will still have a name.
Well, you know what? Maybe Hayley, we'll all become human sexuals, and it won't.
I think, yeah, but I think we'll still, just by the basics of our free will, we'll always seek communities that are in a similar vibe where we can kind of feel safe, and we'll name those communities.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because the communities that I seek today have very little to do with their sexual orientation. It's what is their spiritual vibe. You and I are becoming friends quickly, not because we share a sexual orientation or a gender or national origin or a culture. It's because we experience each other vibrating at the same level spiritually. And that is what's drawing us to come up with our list of guests, is again, not their orientation, although, we both think about, all right, let's make sure we have a balance here, if we can, in terms of race and gender and orientation, et cetera, disability. But what's driving us is really who out there is thinking about life and soul and journey in the same way we are.
Yeah, and I think that's the story. And I know I need to elaborate there, but I think it's being able to see people on the same platform and kind of put a beacon out there, like, hey, I'm on this side of the platform, what's on the other side of the pyramid, and being able to share stories and find similarities in stories, which just then further that safety feeling, like, okay, it's not just me. I'm not the only one. And it's, as much as we want to be seen as unique, as much as we want to be seen as, I'm Hayley, I'm not Brian. We also want to have similarities with people and be like, oh, I'm so relieved that we have a similarity, so I'm not so unique.
Well, here's another one for you, just in terms of responding to you saying I'm Hayley, not Brian. I posted on Facebook the email that I sent to the mother in preparing for our Zoom conversation. I posted that and got a lot of positive response. And one person said, you know, I struggle with the pronoun they, as the mother did. Why do we have to say they when, and I say, yes, I understand as a writer, you're using a plural pronoun for a singular subject. But what if in fact the subject is plural? Yeah. What if indeed we need to start thinking of ourselves as not singular, but as plural? And in that regard, maybe you are not Hayley and I, Brian, right? Maybe what transpires in our friendship is this, just as happened with Ray and me after all these years, you forget, you know, what name to call us. And you said that's because you've created Ray Brian or right, or Bray or whatever combination. So the same thing, Hayley, without you and me being conscious of it, is happening to you and me in these conversations, is that you're becoming not just a memory of in my soul, but part of its fabric.
I had a conversation yesterday that was similar but different. And I was speaking with a friend of mine who was a doctor, a surgeon, and has a very medical perspective of a human. So there's just the physical body.
Say it again, please.
From his perspective and being in his training as a doctor, as a surgeon, he just sees this as a physical body, as blood, as muscle, as the brain being the center of everything. Without the brain, nothing else works. And we were kind of talking about the difference between intuition and conscious intelligence. And it was interesting, his concept was that, well, conscious intelligence is most important to him. Intuition is something that learns from conscious intelligence. And I was sort of like, no, actually, it's the other way around. Intuition informs conscious intelligence. So we had this wonderful conversation. But it was very interesting because I started going into wisdom and the soul. And he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. You've just brought a whole bunch of new characters onto the stage. And I'm like, no, it's still just me and you on the stage, but as part of me and as part of you, I have all these different aspects. And I think that's when the pronoun they is relevant. And I think, you know, maybe we are going to that point where there is just not one, there is the all here, which looks like one, but there's a physical body, an emotional body, a mental body, a spiritual body, the past, the present, the future, the soul, that comes together to create the all.
And we just walk, and we sleepwalk through life.
Unless we don't have all of those in balance and all of those talking to each other and agreeing, and, you know, we are sleepwalking and we are separated. So, you know, from that aspect, they really fits. And
yeah. I'm not sure that I can get away with writing in that fashion.
I think right now it's very out there in the ethers.
Yeah. Because when we speak in terms of we, people ask if we're talking about the royal we here. You know, like the queen never uses the I pronoun, I don't think. She talks about we, you know. So we're multiple. Now, did this doctor resonate with your?
No. And I think what was wonderful about this conversation is that we were able to have a conversation in this day and age where two people from different sides of the spectrum met, conversed. He left the conversation saying, I've got things to think about here. And I left the conversation going, how can I explain this better?
Well, also, though, in the conversation, I always try to learn something from the person, regardless. So what he had that I don't have is an awareness of how the body works. You know, I'm sort of, well, you know, just do it.
Yeah.
whatever it is that's supposed to happen. I've got other things to think about, like feng shui, balancing.
Yeah, and I think my learning from that was, again, I've got to slow down, because when I'm in those conversations, I tend to think so quickly that I can't get the words out. And as soon as the conversation is over, all of the words start catching up, and I'm like, that would have been a perfect way to say it.
Mhm.
Why couldn't you just? So that was my learning, that slowing down is key. And there's a difference between talking from the heart and from the head. When I'm talking from the heart, I can get the words out. I can explain it in a way that is eloquent and understandable. When I'm in the head and trying to, come from this place of I have to defend my position, that's just a jumble.
Right. I need the head to explain things like gender identity to a parent, right? So my knowledge is important, but what makes me approachable, what makes what I'm saying meaningful, is the heart.
Yeah.
I talk from my heart.
The energy.
Right. So knowledge, wisdom isn't knowledge. You need knowledge, I think, for wisdom often, but you can be knowledgeable without being wise.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you might have somebody like this doctor who knows everything there is to know about the body and how to heal a wound, but doesn't think beyond that particular frame of reference. Yeah. And so aren't we lucky? Aren't you and I lucky to have the opportunity to sit here, once a week and talk for an hour about, whatever interests us, rather than being on that construction crew you mentioned earlier, whose every day is spent chopping up cement. That's where gratitude comes in too.
And also, the gratitude of is that I have the freedom to be me, and they have the freedom to be them too. And, they have my perspective on their life. I'm like, not really how I'd want to live, not really what I would want to do. But I also give them the freedom to look at me and be like, damn, girl.
Yeah, you're talking about the doctor or the construction worker there?
Yeah, the construction workers, and even the doctor too,
Well, the construction worker often doesn't have much choice, about.
But also, he's still happy in his life.
Absolutely. Often much happier.
Home and has a castle to go home to, family to go home to. They're laughing while they're working.
And when they go home, they go home.
They go
rather
home.
Than they don't take it with them, right? They don't sit at the table worrying about it. I say they act as if I, am in their mind, but this is my fantasy, is that a lot of people envy the wealthy, but I'll say often the wealthy have, much less freedom than poor people do, because the more toys you have, the more you have to maintain and control and think about, and it's never enough, and your brain is, as opposed to be just in the moment.
I think wealth is a very interesting paradox, because we all seek it. And then we get it. Some of us are lucky enough to get it, and we realize that it wasn't about wealth.
It was about security.
It's about security. And I think I've had the wonderful experience, which I'm very grateful for, to have had a lot of money and to be in that place of worrying about more, and when can I retire? And will I have enough when I retire, to where I was worried about my last apple.
I was going to ask you, did you not save? Were you not a good saver when you were making all that money? Because
I did. I saved, and then I spent it all on my health.
Oh, on your health.
Yeah. So when I left.
That's a story I don't know.
Yeah. So when I left banking, I was very comfortable. And I also had the idea that I wouldn't even be tapping into that because I would start a business and the business would be great. But within 6 months of me leaving banking, my body just said enough. So it started shutting down. So I spent an entire year, well, a year and a half. The first half of that was looking for doctors and somebody that would be able to listen to me first and then be able to treat me. And then a year bringing my body back, and then understanding that a lot of what was happening in my body was emotional and mental trauma and beliefs. So I spent another year after that trying to sort out the mental health. And all of that was I didn't go the Western route where I had insurance. I had to pay for every single one of those appointments on my own. All of the healing that I did was all outside of healthcare, outside of the healthcare system.
What did you learn in that process? I mean, to go from wealth to poverty, what lessons did you learn that were really valuable for you?
It's not about wealth. It's about me. It's about my balance between my physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And if that's in balance, my happiness is unshakable, regardless of where the wealth is, most of the time. And they're still learning around that too. So that was my perspective there, that it doesn't have, like, the happiness in life has very little to do with material things. It has to do with where I am in my physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual states. I learned that I have no idea how people survive, middle class and below, how they survive. It's a mystery to me that they can survive, because
you mean economically making ends meet.
It's beyond me that they're paying the majority of the taxes in the country, and they're not getting much of the benefit. Their healthcare is very limited. What they can afford is very limited. So that, to me, is one of the biggest things that I would, once I build myself back up again, I would love to be able to delve into that and see if there's a better way that we can do things, because
you already do that, though. I mean,
you know it because it's over there.
But you do. If you have already, you tell people that, look, tell me what you can afford.
Yeah.
Right. So a poor person can come to you and get the same service. So Hayley, you're already participating.
True.
Yeah, you are. And that's all any of us are asked to do.
Yeah.
Is not accumulate millions so that we can give it away, but in our daily life, figure out a way to help, to participate in a positive way in the lives of people who are less fortunate. And you already are doing that. Did you lose status?
Yes.
When you lost your money, people who liked you before because you had money? And
absolutely, people that liked me before because I was in banking and I had money to do whatever I wanted whenever I wanted. The minute where I was like, okay, I can't really afford that, not just because I didn't feel good. I actually didn't have the energy to go out and do the things that I used to do. But when I started saying, like, I can't afford that, they're like, what? And then, a lot of where I came from too, a lot of people were, are you earning the same amount that you were earning in banking yet? I'm like, no, I'm not.
And that's not my goal.
That's not my goal, but, definitely lost status, lost friends. There's definitely loss there in every sense of the word loss, because whether it's a good or a bad loss, it was still a loss.
The same thing happens, that I'm working on a book on being gay and gray, and thinking about the uh, when we retire, we lose status because people were attracted to what we did. And when you retire, unless you're people like me who was, writes, so I can say, well, I'm a writer. When you retire as a doctor or dentist, vet, whatever it is, what do you tell people who you are when they ask? And you lose status. People lose interest. They're likely to want to spend less time at a cocktail party because they don't know what to talk about, because they are in a job. And you also lose status when a partner dies or you get divorced. That single people aren't invited to the same things that couples are invited to.
Absolutely. And I'm divorced, and the stigma now is that there's something wrong with me.
Because you haven't remarried?
Well, because I got divorced.
Right.
And then also because I haven't got back into another, like by now I should be married again, right? And I should have kids. And I don't have either. So there's something wrong with me.
So friends are there are friends that are less communicative than they once were?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's some friends, I notice it even with my friends that are married and with kids, they immediately jump to conclusions about me. Oh, Hayley's made a choice to be single for the rest of her life. Hayley's made a choice not to have kids. I'm like, did I?
Well, so what do you think motivates those judgments?
I think it's fear. I think it's fear. And
fear of what?
I think it's fear of that they're afraid that I'm going to judge them and see the holes in their story. So they're immediately, a lot of people would be very protective and like, don't look over here, look over there.
Part of it, I think, is I want to spend time with people, who can talk to me about daycare and Hayley doesn't, really doesn't relate to that. Part of it, I think, is not thinking long-term, going back to our thing about wisdom and knowledge, that when we're, I think when we are accumulating wisdom, when we have a long-term understanding, the status of a person is much less important to us.
I think, it's so interesting that I'm going to probably get into trouble, but, mothers, wives, and I'm saying mothers, wives because I'm a woman and most of my friends are women, but I do have some guy friends that are in that married sector. They tend to, most, if not all, of my friends that are married have now come to a mindset where there's no gray, it's black or white. You're either married or you're not. And if you're not married, you're never going to understand. And you either have kids or you don't. If you don't have kids, you're never going to understand.
Understand their life.
Understand their life, understand what it's like to, worry about kids and take care of kids. And, you become, your input is completely nullified and not wanted because you don't know.
I understand. I get that. I understand that. I think part of it is, I want my nieces and nephews to be reflective and to be in the moment. And I try to remember that, but they don't have the time that I have. If they have 3 kids who are youngsters and, a couple dogs and full-time jobs, I have no consciousness of how much time that takes and how much concentration it takes to be present to all of those things. And I think if we who want to offer counsel need to be cautious that what we're offering is welcomed at that moment. Right. So it's possible to dismiss us because we're retired or older or single or without children, and dismiss what we're trying to offer about spiritual paths because we aren't dealing with the same sort of stresses that they have, every day. That doesn't mean we can't be useful to them. It just means that we have to be careful about when and how we share.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to that age-old mantra of give help when asked.
And when the student is ready.
When the student is ready.
The teacher appears.
Yeah, and this week it's been a huge trigger week for me, as I explained. And one of the triggers was, me feeling like I need to save people and take on their karma so they don't have to deal with it. And I think, that's such a huge reminder, slow down, go into gratitude, but also remember that sometimes you can just send love. That's it.
And if they're not asking you to solve the problem, to be mindful that they need to solve it for them to have the soul experience.
Yeah, it's their experience.
It's their journey. If they ask for help, then I'm glad to help. But I'm like you. I mean, I'm a codependent, meaning, as a child, which is not a bad thing, incidentally. My codependency, I wrote recently on Facebook, is a gift. When because a child who's codependent reads the room, and they sort of figure out who needs what, and how are people feeling. Because as a child, we felt the need to be grown up for whatever reasons, faster than our age dictated. And as a speaker on LGBTQ issues, my ability to read a room really benefited me and my presentation. So that's the good part. The bad part is boundaries, where we don't know how to set boundaries for ourselves and other people. Going back to our original statement of me saying I felt overwhelmed by somebody saying they needed something right away. I wasn't very good at saying no. I can't do it. I took it on myself and got sick, feeling sick with anxiety.
I'm with you there. And I think in my experience, in my line of work, I give information. Once it settles on my client, it becomes knowledge. And then it becomes wisdom when they do something with that. There are times where they will take it in and nothing will happen. It's always
that's true for us too, right? I mean, we can read a passage in a book. It's there for us to take in and transform, but we're just not in the right place at the moment.
Yeah. So when I see, clients not taking it, I take it on myself, not to, I have to remember it's their path, it's their experience, let them go. Because if I sit there and I go all right, I have to be able to be better at what I do so that they don't have to think about this. I have to find a way that it resonates better. And that's a lot of pressure that I'm putting on myself, because it's no.
It is. I think the best for me is, okay, so tell me what I'm saying to you at this moment feels useful to you. What have we talked about that resonates? Because let's focus on that, because we can come back. You're thinking in your own mind, we can come back and talk about these other things if they continue to come back, but we really need to focus on what's resonating.
What resonates. And sometimes what doesn't resonate is a lot of information too, because then that's resistance. There's a lot of healing in any form of resignation, I think.
Mm-hmm. So Hayley, personal question. On a scale of 0 to 10, a happiness quotient, where would you put yourself today?
Today,
Mhm.
oh, I'm
Doesn't matter.
asking them. I'm
There's no
asking
right
them
answer. Okay,
where they
ask
are.
them.
I think I'm at an 8 or a 9 today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at an 8 or a 9 today.
And what makes it not a 10?
There's worry. I have worry.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm like, there's a little bit of unsettledness in me where I'm like, I gotta figure this out.
Yeah.
So that is keeping me at the 10, but it's definitely not making me lose hope in the 10. I know that once I figure this out, I'll be back at 10.
You know, your response is really interesting, especially in light of our conversation, because it's a question that I often ask people, you know, on a scale of 0, you know, where are you on happiness and what's stopping you? But the you wanting to check in with all the different parts of yourself. There are parts of us that are at a 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there are parts of us that aren't, you
Yeah.
know, for whatever reason. You know, overall, I would say overall intellectually, I would say I'm a 10, right? But I don't always feel 10 in
Yeah.
terms of my joy and happiness. And that can be because of worry. And sometimes I don't know why
Yeah.
I'm feeling. Sometimes I can't tell you. I can tell you all the reasons I should be giving you a 10 as my answer. All the incredible things I have in my life that one would say, how can you not be? And there are days, on those days that I don't feel it. Sometimes I don't know how to explain why. It's just not that day at that moment.
Yeah. And I think it's, read the room. We're always in a room.
Mm.
We might not see the physical humans, but we're always in the room with a bunch of energies. And sometimes there's a stronger energy around that we're picking up on, and we're just like, I just can't put my finger on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I recommend to several of my clients, like in the morning when you check the weather in terms of what am I wearing, you also need to check the weather in terms of the energies around. Is this you actually being able to say, all right, I'm not sure why I'm not happy and I can't put my finger on it? Well, is that really yours, or are you picking up on something out there that just feels iffy and you can't quite figure it out yet?
And going back to your point about meditation, you saying you can't meditate, with the drilling going around, you've shared before that meditation isn't just sitting.
Not just sitting.
And yeah, it can be walking the dog, right? It depends upon where your mind is at the moment.
And my meditation then, rather than sitting and trying to, be very Buddhist about it, my meditation was coming inside, shutting the door, shutting the curtain so nobody could see me, and getting stuck into Carl Jung's autobiography. That to me is joy.
Mm-hmm. And putting earphones on so you didn't hear it?
No, I just, if I can get into a space where I'm into something, I'm completely in a different world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm present, but nothing bothers me. It's just like I hear the noise and I'm okay with it. And but there's one noise that if it's at a high pitched noise, I can't do it. I have to run away, literally run away. But for the drilling and the clanging.
Oh, you mean like dentist drilling noise, the whining?
Yeah, like
high pitched whining.
Noise. I was at my friend's house. They're building a house and they have these massive glass doors and they were fitting the glass, which when I see these people, I'm just like, I don't know how you're doing this, but I'm so glad it's you. We're sitting watching them take this glass, these massive panes of glass, up like 10 feet up in the air, and then putting them into these metal structures. And some of the glass wasn't fitting, so they have to cut it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, the noise. It is something else. It was just the most blood-curdling noise of hearing them, like, it's almost like they scratch the glass. And then they have these like plier things that cut it and crunch it. And it's just like, there's so much going on in that moment. You're hearing it. You're hearing that crunch of the glass, the scratch of it, and then you're hearing the glass like fall down, and you're just like, oh God. And he's 10 foot up in the air.
Okay, so you know where not to be at that moment.
Yeah. I think that's part of honoring who I am too. When I try and take care, I do take responsibility for all of us, them.
Yeah.
And one of my ways of honoring that is like, all right, when you guys tell me to get out, we're out.
Right. Let's go for a walk.
Let's go for a walk. If there's high-pitched noises, I'll leave. I won't. There's times where I don't even feel the need to explain where I'm going. I'm just out. I'm like, I have to take care of my people first.
Tell me about the joy that you get from your work.
I don't even know how to express it. It's such joy. It's such hope. I'm trying to find words for it. I feel like I'm an infinite romantic of humanity. And it's when I see people that have the courage to want to know who they are and want to understand how they can be better, it's amazing. And it's in the heart. It's not in the head. It's in the heart. And it's just this, it's like butterflies. Butterflies all over. And it's amazing. I have clients that are from 19 up until, I think my oldest one is 82. And all of them are just in their own way. There's so much hope, so much genius wisdom in the human experience. And for me to be blessed with my ability to be able to see it that closely and to be in it, I feel so honored. And then to be able to connect with people and for them to trust me, just another level of honor. It's
feeling that you're making a difference in their lives.
You know,
a positive difference.
A positive, I'm part of their journey into a better life. And that better life not only impacts them, it impacts their entire constellation. Their entire family benefits of that. So it's incredibly powerful. And that's why every single one of them, I see more, I heal in these sessions too. I get information. It's an incredible way to live. And I give great thanks for my journey, for allowing me to be at this point now where I can do this. Like all of it, whether it was good, whether it was bad, whether I laughed, whether I cried, whether I was happy or in fear. Thank you. Thank you.
And what are your plans with the retreats now?
So I'm actually moving next month.
Oh.
So
wow.
I move into a more proper house in May, and that will be sort of the kickoff of the retreats. So I have my first dummy run at the end of May. A friend is coming down, and I'm going to treat her as if she's my first full retreat and get her feedback on it. And then after that, it's opening it up and inviting clients to come down and spend 5 days with me. And we'll go and see the sites, experience them from a very energetic perspective rather than from a tourist perspective. And then there's also the retreats that I'll be doing in the US. The first one we're hoping to do in Palm Springs in September, which are moving along. So all of these, and then there's a couple other things that I have my hand in the pot with. On the corporate side, a few things kind of in the talks there. So
corporate in what way? Meaning coaching?
Working with entrepreneurs as well as looking more on the corporate, more multi-corporate side in terms of training programs and culture, mostly around culture.
Uh-huh. Good for you.
So yeah, it's happening as long as I can stay out of my own way.
And how do you, I mean, what does that mean? How do you do that?
Slowing down,
And
breathing, letting go.
and worrying less.
Worrying less. You know, worrying is, whenever I worry, I always ask the question, what am I worrying about? And is it true? 9 times out of 10, my worry is based on a negative comment or negative experience that I might have once heard or once had, and I'm basing my entire future on that one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that requires my attention in terms of, okay, get the truth around this and let it go.
And your house is that you're going to rent is in the same area that you're.
Same area, yeah.
Yeah.
It's on the other side of the railway tracks, and it's big. It's a 2-bedroom. It has a bit more separation in terms of a specific workspace from the living space. So that was really key for me to have
The retreat with just one extra bedroom. The retreats will start off with one person.
1 or 2. If it's more than that, I've partnered with a hotel, a boutique hotel, to get some good rates. So if you don't necessarily want to stay with me, there's this wonderful hotel where I'll organize it all that you can go and stay in.
Good for you.
But yeah,
that's great.
It's we move and shake.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think that's great. I love retreats, and I love leading them because you have more time with people, and some of the best work happens after you finish the formal sessions.
Yeah, and I always feel like, it's great doing this through technology. I do believe that energy does travel, but being able to do it in person, having human contact is the most powerful still. So I think, having people come down for about 5 days where there is that one-on-one time is going to be a massive amplification of what we can do through technology.
Are you assuming that by the time you start, that everyone will be in a rhythm with their vaccinations?
I'm not too concerned with vaccinations. I'm more concerned with the PCR test. So that is a requirement that you have to have a negative PCR test before you come, and then you're going to have another negative PCR test to leave. So I'm more concerned in terms of the negative PCR tests.
Is that your requirement or Mexico's?
My requirement. And to fly back into the US, you need a negative PCR test.
Yeah, we're going to be going to an engagement party in the Bahamas over Memorial Day, and they require a negative test in both directions.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's the US requiring on the way
US,
back.
It is now, I think it started in January, like maybe February 1st. Maybe it was March. No, February 1st. The US started requiring for anybody flying outside of the US to come back in, you have to have the negative PCR.
Yeah. This is the new normal. I mean, I was reading this morning that the Pfizer test, which Ray and I vaccine, said that, the second shot is good for up to 6 months. And I thought, 6 months? That means that we've got to keep doing this? And Ray said, well, it's going to be like the flu shot, maybe get it from the doctor.
Yeah, I think it will be like the flu shot. I think there's still, from my personal perspective and what I see, there's still a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of information that hasn't fully trickled through yet, I feel. Mm-hmm. So the PCR test right now is really the safest, because even if you have the vaccine, you can still be a carrier. You can still pass it on to other people. Even though you don't get sick, you can pass it on to other people.
Okay, so if PCR stands for what?
I don't even know. Something,
I haven't.
I don't know.
The C has got to be COVID.
Oh, rapid, something COVID rapid test. I don't know.
Oh, all
Personal
right. Well,
corona. I have no idea.
well, I'll find out.
We'll
I'll
look,
find out.
I'm gonna go look it up too.
Yeah.
But it's,
Well,
and even then, you know, how reliable is it? I don't know.
well,
It gives
no.
people the mental idea that they're safe. So I think that does a lot in terms of keeping people healthy. But I don't know.
I've actually enjoyed part of the containment just because it's given me a lot of time
Oh, I
at
really,
home in the garden and thinking. And I think that's true for a lot of people, except for mothers with large numbers of children. That would be insane. you
yeah,
know.
and the extroverts are having a tough time. But I've really enjoyed it. And now as things are opening up and things are getting back to normal, there is a slight bit of like, damn, my cover's getting blown.
Yeah, right.
Like,
I have to start entertaining again.
yeah, you know, like staying home and not leaving the house for 3 days is going to start looking odd again.
Yeah. Well, Hayley, it's wonderful our
Indeed.
time together as always.
Always.
And I've loved what we've talked about, and we have interesting guests coming up.
We have,
Uh,
I think,
yeah,
April's full, May's full.
yeah.
So, yeah, we're busy, moving and shaking.
So, yeah, Sister Janine Gramick, who started New Ways Ministry outreach to gay Catholics, who's had a challenging life with the Vatican, and silencing her or trying to, and talking to her about, so where did the courage come from? How did you know? She was a math teacher. She was a math teacher, a nun teaching math at the college level.
And then
suddenly
going up against the Vatican. I'm worried about my parents. She's going up against the Vatican. Like, talk about perspective.
Well, the best thing in the world for a book is to have the Vatican condemn it. Then everyone wants to read it.
True.
I wish they
a lot.
condemn one of my books.
That's a lot, man.
Yeah. All right, my friend.
Lots of love to you, Brian.
Lots
And
of love
we'll
to
see
you.
next week.
Good.
Bye.
Bye, dear.